story. But by the second to last class of Shavuos that we had, so the speaker got up to speak about the power of tzedakah, and we had the opportunity. So he was talking about tzedakah, and happened to be 3 days before that I had met a young couple with a few kids, who the husband was a truck driver, and they were doing fairly well, but he had a torn retina in his eye, and he had to basically sell his truck, and they lost all the money they had, and they couldn't even afford to pay rent. And it was so beautiful to see that you learn something in Torah, and then you're able to implement it right away. So I got up to say, if anybody wants to donate, and so many people just raised their hand, and were able to put together money for them. It was just like one of the most beautiful experiences to see everyone come together. Like, you learn something, and you get to implement it. So how soon do you have it in Torah that you learn an idea, and you implement it in such a beautiful way? It was such a highlight. It was such a beautiful experience that we had. So now we continue on. Parsha Behaalotecha. Parsha Behaalotecha, in my book, nobody has the same one, so it doesn't matter. So a number of things that we're going to discuss tonight. I don't want to go through the review of the Parsha, but this is one of the famous Parshios, the famous portions that initially everything sounds fantastic, but then we get into the problem of complainers. We get into the complainers, we get into what Hashem's going to do because of the complainers, and the punishments that are going to come from that, and that's going to lead us down a slippery slope, and then next week we're going to have the sin of the spies, and that's going to just wreak havoc on the Jewish people. We're going to be sitting in the desert now 40 years. So only a few days before they're actually supposed to go into Israel. A few days before they're supposed to go in. But because of the experiences they have, everything changes for the Jewish people. Which is interesting, because if you could imagine it, it's like they're in the middle of this book, or in the beginning of the book of Midbar number 4. Imagine had we gone right away, it'd be like, how many books are there in the Torah? About 3.5, you know? But because of these incidents, we got another book and a half. Right? Obviously, it doesn't mean that.
Right.
But, you know, when you hear the story, like, I can't believe this thing almost ended, you know? It's like you have a movie that, like, you know, like, there's nothing left. All the players died. No, but there's still one thing left, and they're going to come back alive, right? So we ask ourselves about the whole story over here. Obviously, it's meant to be. It's meant to be. This is part of the blueprint of the world. Torah is that blueprint of the world. But we see this is where we see a tremendous downfall of the Jewish people. So we're going to look at a few pieces over here tonight to give us a little bit of insight into our own lives and into the Torah itself. So I want to start off with a Rashi. I don't understand the Rashi. I'm just going to turn to the crowd for maybe some explanation. When I say explanation, I understand the literal meaning of it. I don't understand anything beyond the literal meaning of it. So Rashi says like this, and Hashem spoke to Moshe, and he said to him, speak to Aaron, and you're going to tell him, when you light the neros, when you light the candles of the menorah, you're going to light 7 lights. So Rashi says, why is this parsha of the menorah, this 7-branch candelabrum, why is it connected to the previous parsha, to the previous portion, which talks about the donations of the priests? Of the leaders. Why? When Aaron saw the Chanukas Hanasim, which means the inauguration that these leaders were giving, they were giving these donations, and they saw them giving out of their own heart, so he felt bad. He felt all bad. Why? Because he wasn't with them with that inauguration of the temple, of the Mishkan, if you will, the tabernacle. Not him, not his tribe. So Hashem said to him, you should know for yourself, upon your life, your portion is going to be greater than theirs. Why? Because you're going to light the menorah, and therefore that's going to be greater. What does it mean you're going to light the menorah? Okay, why is bringing a sacrifice different than the menorah? Well, because the menorah is hinting to over here the future menorah. What is that a reference to? Not only, see, a sacrifice is offered when you have a temple, but when you have no temple, ain't going to be no sacrifice. What is there going to be? But the menorah is still going to be around during the times of the Second Temple era, and therefore, Aaron, don't worry about it. I know you cannot inaugurate, but yet you're going to have something even better, and that is even when the temple is not around, you're going to have the mitzvah of lighting the menorah in the temple, and after the temple, that of the menorah that we light in our homes for Hanukkah as well. It's going to be through you, because it's going to be the Kohanim that are going to be the ones that are enabling this to happen. Okay, so somehow it's related to that of Hanukkah, but don't worry, you'll have that. So that's the Rashi. Very simple. Here's my question. I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just presenting a question. If you have it, great.
Have answers, so
you only have answers, right?
Yes.
Here's the question. The question is, why is he so bothered? What's really bothering him over here? Now, Aaron is not bothered by anybody. He was so excited to see his brother, who became, chosen as the head of the Jewish people. And even though he was older, he was so excited for everything. He's the one that makes peace with everybody here. Somehow, it's just like he's missing out. I wish I could do that also. I'll give you a partial answer. Partial answer is okay. Because when it comes to inaugurating, you want to be there. You want to be there to cut that ribbon. You want to be there, part of God's army, to be part of this opening ceremony. Why is it bothering him so much? And the question is, of course, if it's bothering him so much, so God says, don't worry, I'll let you light the menorah. Like in my house, sometimes my kids fight over who gets to hold the Havdalah candle, who gets to light the Havdalah candle, right? So they get to fight over, okay, next week you'll do... What is Aaron bothered by over here? What does he really want? And how does God now calm him down by saying, relax, you'll be okay, right? That's the question. If anyone has a good answer, they feel confident in sharing with other people, your friends will be your judges, okay? Just letting you know. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I read somewhere, and I don't remember where, I just read it yesterday, that like, as example, if king has somebody and he loves this person and he says, like, I'm not, everybody's gonna come to my party, but he kind of like doesn't invite this guy, but he loves them to death, right? So everybody comes and the guy is like frustrated, like, I'm not there when everybody is there. Right. But when the party is over, he invites him one-on-one and saying, the only reason why I didn't invite you because I wanted to give you time and one-on-one. So pretty much that's like, that everybody else is, like it's everybody else.
Good.
But Aaron is
okay,
special.
So let's vote on that. You like the answer? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Any problems with that answer?
Unless somebody knows that, it might not be obvious.
Might not be obvious, okay. Fine, so who is it for? Is it for him or for them?
It's actually for the Aaron to understand that he is special, that he should feel that he is not the same as everybody else.
Good, so I can accept that part, that he's not the same as everybody else, but here's my question to you. Why would he feel bad?
Because he feels that he's left over, like he's not there with everybody else.
Again, correct, but he's Aaron.
Generations.
But he's Aaron, and he never felt bad about anything before. Nothing ever bothered him in those areas. Nothing ever bothered him. Why is he now going, man, I wasn't invited?
Because he made the gold cow.
Okay, good. So that's, can you give him a high five?
No, Russian high five.
Russian high five. That's the Russian high five. That's, I guess, a Russian high five.
And Russian high five as low as they can do it.
Yeah. So what Alex is saying over here, what's a powerful idea, this is a running theme that actually goes throughout. The running theme that you see through Aaron is that he rarely, I don't know how to say he rarely, through some of the commentaries, he doesn't feel like he's ever received atonement for the sin that he's done with the golden calf. That even though he took part of it for whatever reason, he still doesn't feel like he's at that level. That even though he's gone through so many different ways of atoning for it, but he never feels like he has that. And part of that is a positive role, because you always want to feel like, you know what, you haven't brought yourself to the highest level of atonement, you can get there more. And part of it is this feeling of like, you know what, I let Hashem down. So it's an interesting note over here that perhaps it's related to this idea that he's feeling left out, and Hashem says no, like Sergei is saying. No, relax, it's even better than you think. I want to single you out to show how good you are. But in Aaron's mind, it could be that he feels that maybe he's still bringing up that sin, and that perhaps I like the answer. It's a very good answer. Okay.
I have 2 cents.
Okay, good.
Only 5. We have no change.
Credit goes to the book which I constantly use from the Russian, well-known Russian Rabbi Zilbert. It's called Zilbert.
Silver, yeah.
So his explanation is that Aaron was bothered with the fact that he did something wrong, which is connected to, and even though Torah clearly shows Aaron as one of the most righteous, maybe second to Moshe, so why is the person who, by Torah ratings, is almost like second to the best, still bothered? The answer is here is that great people always look to blame themselves. The lesson, the takeaways from here, the great people always blame themselves versus blaming someone else. So they always take the blame.
That's the Jewish mother, right? No, it's okay, I'll sit in the dark, right? Right? But that's what. How does it joke go? How does it joke go?
I don't know.
How many Jewish mothers does it take to sit in the light bulb, to change a light bulb, right? No, it's okay, I'll sit in the dark, right? Right? Well, that's a good, very, very good point, right? That we don't look to become a victim, and we look to see what role did we actually play in this? What fault do we perhaps have? And that is as a mark of improvement. They're always looking to make ourselves better. So I want to go to another piece over here. Another piece is the famous piece of Pesach Sheni. So we'll just briefly read it.
Second Passover.
The second Paschal sacrifice. The children of Israel shall make the Pesach offering in its appointed time, on the 14th day of the month. In the afternoon you shall make it in its appointed time. Fine. Moshe told this to everybody. They did this in the proper time. And there were men who had been contaminated by a human corpse and could not make the Pesach offering on that day. They couldn't offer this sacrifice. So they came to Moshe and Aaron on that day, and they said, we're contaminated, but we're not allowed to offer the sacrifice. Why should we be diminished? Lama nigara. Why should we lose out to not offer the sacrifice to God? So Moshe says, I'll paraphrase, good question, give me a minute, let's ask God. Okay? So Hashem responds and he says, speak to the children of Israel, tell them, if anyone becomes contaminated, or you're too far away, then in the second month, on the 14th day, you're going to do it. So you have a month layaway plan, if you will. Buy now, pay later. You missed it out. We'll give you a second round. We'll give you a rerun, and we'll allow you to do it a second time. But if a person is pure and was not on the road and they could have done it, then that's bad news. They get cut off. So it's only if you couldn't for whatever reason, or you're impure, they actually have a second chance at this. So the obvious question is, why do you have a second chance at this mitzvah? Right? Most commandments, you have it. This is when you do it. If you miss out, you lost it. So you have a concept over here of second chance. Okay, there's such an important mitzvah that God is telling you, you missed it, we'll give you a second chance. But the question that's posed is, what do you mean second chance? There's a concept that if I'm doing a mitzvah, and for whatever reason I can't do another mitzvah because I'm doing one, so I'm considered absolved. Why am I absolved? I'm in the middle of one mitzvah. There's a concept called ones rachmana patre. The Torah, if you're, for whatever reason, have an unavoidable thing that happened to you, you're absolved from doing the mitzvah. So for example, let's say you are doing a mitzvah of honoring your parents, and therefore you can't do another particular mitzvah because you can't do them both at the same time, then you're absolved. If you can do the mitzvahs at the same time, then you're not absolved. So I can't say, sorry, I'm wearing tzitzis, I have my four-corner garment, so I can't do any other mitzvah. So my mother calls me and says, hey, can you come over and help? I can't, Mom, I'm busy. I'm wearing tzitzis. Right? Well, why don't you get off your cushion and get over here? So the answer is as long as I can fulfill two at the same time, fulfill two at the same time. But if I can't, for whatever reason, then you do the one that's primary. You do the one that's in front of you first, right? So the case that we have over here is, these men come over to Moshe and they say, look, we would have loved to have offered the sacrifice, but we were fulfilling the mitzvah of burying the dead. We're burying the dead, whoever, the Gemara gives you a dispute as to who it is. We're fulfilling this mitzvah of burying the dead, so we couldn't do it. It's not fair. So they come to me and say, but we want to do it. So why don't you just respond and say, hey, relax. You don't have to do it. You were in the middle of something else. That was a mitzvah that took precedence. You're absolved, just like any other mitzvah would have been that way. But that's not their response. Their response is, we want to be able to do it. So Moshe goes, I don't know, let me go look into this. Let me find out what God has to say. And so a new law, quote unquote, is created. Obviously, it's not a new law. It was going to happen anyway. The Gemara tells us, the Talmud tells us, that there's certain individuals throughout the Torah that, because of their merits, so God created, or if you will, introduced the law through them. So, and this is one of the cases where God introduced the law through these people. In their merit, a law was introduced. So what's the necessity for the law? Either way, God was going to introduce it. If you missed on the first time, you have a chance in the second time. But the question that is posed is, why is it that they actually need to? Just don't let them do it a second time. They're absolved from what they were doing. So the answer that I heard is given in the name of the Zohar. The Zohar says, he quotes a story, and the Zohar says that there was a child, he saw these rabbis who were coming back, these Tanam, these great rabbis who were coming back from Pidyon Shvim, from the mitzvah of, how do you translate Pidyon Shvim?
Redeeming a captive.
Redeeming a captive. People were taken as prisoners, so they're going to go ahead and figure out a way to pay money to redeem these captives. And this boy sees them, and he says, I could see that you didn't say Shema. You didn't fulfill the mitzvah of Shema. The mitzvah of Shema is that you have to say it in the morning and the evening. I can see that you didn't say the mitzvah. You didn't fulfill the mitzvah. Well, why didn't you fulfill the mitzvah? He says to them. Well, they said, because we're in the middle of redeeming captives. Mm-hmm. So the question asked is, first, how does he even know? He looks at their faces and he sees that they didn't fulfill the mitzvah. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Can you imagine you look at somebody and you know what they did and what they didn't do? Right? It's pretty remarkable. The kid sees it. It'd be pretty scary. I just put a veil over my face wherever I go. Right? So what's going on over here? So they respond. They say, "Look, it wasn't our fault. It wasn't our fault. We were doing something else." So the response that is quoted over there is the following. It's true that it wasn't your fault, but it was noticeable on your faces that it didn't bother you that you didn't say Shema. It didn't bother you that you didn't have to fill a mitzvah. Why? Because you were doing another mitzvah. But had you really cared so much to do it, then God would have created the scenario for you that you would have been able to do both. So oftentimes when we're doing a mitzvah, something that we're doing, whatever the thing that we're actually doing is, it wasn't my fault, I got stuck in traffic, this and that, all these different things that happen of how we could have done something, but it didn't bother us that we didn't actually do it. Sometimes it has to do with honoring our parents, sometimes it has to do with whatever the case may be, that we could have done something, but you know what? Something came up and I therefore couldn't get it done. Even if you took it out of the world of mitzvah observance, but our own moral code about certain things that happen. Why did you act a certain way? Well, it could be the way we drive. It could be we actually do things in a supermarket, in a market, right? It could be that somehow we act a certain way that we can give excuses for ourselves as to why we do it. But at the end of the day, if we really wanted to do it in a better way, then God would have enabled that to happen to us. So that concept actually means that if you really want something with all your heart, then God's going to make it happen that way, and you won't be stuck in a scenario where you have to juggle, where you have to weigh the options, where you have to say, no, what could I do? So what the Zohar is telling us over here is that these men came to Moshe. Sure, they didn't have to do it. They were absolved. But they had such a strong desire for it that through them, this new mitzvah is now introduced, and therefore they're actually able to do it in the best possible way that they can. So that is a tremendous model lesson for us, because there's so many times, how many times I can count it on a daily basis, where it's like you're not really in the mood to do something, and it's like, okay, you let it go. You let the thing go, and it's like, it's not my fault, It's not my fault, whatever, this and this came about, But it's about being true to yourself, to be able to realize that if you really cared about it, God would have put it in your path to make it actually happen that way. And that's the profundity as to how God actually runs the world, that if you really show a desire for something, He'll create for you the ability for you to actually fulfill both things. If you want to be able to fulfill both mitzvos, He's going to make it in such a way you'll be able to fulfill both mitzvos. If you don't, okay, so He'll just leave it up to the way it's supposed to be, and you'll do it that way. But if you really have a burning desire for something, you'll be able to actually let it happen to you. So it's just an interesting thought. about these people who came to be able to offer the sacrifice, the Korban Pesach.
It's
Even
mean
they
if
need
you
to.
do mitzvah. If you don't do mitzvah, if you're working and you need to do mitzvah, what you need to do? But you're in the middle of the job.
In the middle of a job, right?
Yeah.
So God would create it in such a way that if you have such a desire to do it, that He's going to enable the break to happen to you, that someone's going to come over to you and say, hey, you know what, why don't you take a break, or you'll be able to fix it quicker than you had fixed it in the past. And you'll be able to have that natural break to be able to do it. I can remember years ago, must have been about like 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I was working for a law firm. I was doing computers for this law firm, okay? And it was downtown. And I knew, I was looking at my watch, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get back, whatever. So I would go and I would pray mincha. I would pray the afternoon prayer in the server room, right? So I closed the door. It was like
Nice
boiling hot in there, right?
Nice and cool.
And it's so hot, right? And once in a while someone would walk in. Like, great, how am I going to explain this? I'm not going to talk to them, But that's what I did, But I'm sitting in there, and like already ahead of time, I made it in my mind like, okay, I'm not going to make it back to go for service. I'm not going to have a chance to get back. So it came out that more often than not, I ended up praying in that server room than being able to go to a minyan that I would have liked to. Because really deep down, I think to myself, I was like, okay, if I miss it, I have work to do. What can I do? But my desire wasn't strong enough to say, I'm never missing it. So I think that's how God really laid it out for me. Like, look, you happen to have another failure, this went wrong, that went wrong, they need this, you have to fix it now. I'm like, wow, it keeps happening right at the end of the day. Like, why is this happening? I think part of it, my desire wasn't fully there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm totally on it. I've been in those situations, and totally this is how the thing works. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm gonna do my job, and I still need to do the prayer. Now, if your thought is in reverse, I need to do the prayer, how am I gonna do that? So if it's truly coming from the heart. So if it's truly coming from the heart that the job is not your aim, but the prayer is your aim, and the job is a barrier, then it will work.
That's why it always works for me. Thanks God.
It's reality.
It's hard. It's hard.
It's hard.
No, it comes with practice of what your desire actually is. Because in the beginning, it never happens that way. In the beginning, you're like, I'm going to be strong in this, and then everything blocks you in the way. Because that's your evil inclination trying to block you from all these things. So once you get past that first or second road hump, that block, then Hashem says, I see you really want it, I'm going to make it easier on your life.
Yeah, because you only need 15 minutes for prayer, 20 minutes for prayer. How long does it take? It takes
An hour,
You
2
need
hours.
to say 3, so it's an hour a day. But you're considering it different times. It's a 15 minutes at the daytime, so it doesn't really take your time.
Priority. What basically?
Okay, so let me continue on here. So we're going to do another piece. We discussed about it last year. I'm not reviewing the whole piece, but it says that when the ark went to travel, this is what we say in our prayers when we take out the Torah. But Moshe, when the ark went to travel, Hashem, arise Hashem, and let your foes be scattered. Let those who hate flee from you. Shuva Hashem Ros Alpha Yisrael. And when it's rested, he would say, reside tranquilly, O Hashem, amongst the myriads of tons of Israel. In the Torah, there is a separation of two upside-down letters, the two upside-down nuns, and that makes a distinguishing mark in the Torah. What is it for? Rashi gives us a famous line, what it's for: to separate from one calamitous event to the other calamitous event. So there's a dispute about what are the events that happen. Again, this is where the snowball effect takes place. 2 or 3 calamitous events that the Jews have done wrong, and therefore there's going to be punishment, and that's going to lead the snowball, which will eventually lead to the sin of the spies. So Rashi says we want to separate between the two different distinctions of what happened over here. So the Marsha asked the question, and this is what Rabbi Yerucham presents the following: how could it be the Jewish people were at Har Sinai? We were just at this mountain. It was an unbelievable experience. We had revelation like we never had before. Okay? We saw God. We saw everything. And so quickly, we just disintegrate and fall apart. How soon after this? It's about 11 months from the Sinai experience to where they are right now, and everything falls apart. So the Marsha explains why. Because when they were at Har Sinai was basically this place of holiness that held them together. So when you have a holy experience within your life, you don't want to actually let that go. And what happens is you have it, and then somebody like, okay, I have to leave, right? People have had it at a wedding, but like, oh, I don't want the wedding to end, or other experiences they have, maybe more for a wedding for your child, I don't know. That a person wants to be able to have that experience. So the Marsha explains that Har Sinai was this holy abode for them, was their base medrash, this place of where they connected deeply to Torah, and that was that set place. And once they left, it all crumbled. Which means every one of us has a holy experience where you have that total revelation, that total clarity. But when we leave, what do we do with that? How do we ensure that that's actually going to remain with us? It's usually extremely difficult. And the key in many cases is really to be able to say to yourself, okay, I had this experience. How am I going to make sure that this actually lasts? What can I do for myself that will show it actually lasts? So in most cases, a person we would say is you must take upon yourself something different that you didn't actually do before. That will show that you're not in Kansas anymore, as we say in Russian, right? Right? That we say that you're not in the same place you were before. You have to do something that's actually going to make it last within us. But the Marsha is leading to this idea is that the sins came along to the Jewish people because they did not feel this ultimate closeness that we had. And they stood at Har Sinai and it was like, wow, there's nothing greater than this. And once you leave, it all slowly dissipates. So you've all had those Shabbatones, right? Or some type of experience, you're like, wow, unbelievable. How soon after does it happen, right? We always say like on Yom Kippur, right? Yom Kippur, a person goes this elevated experience, like you've just felt so holy, so close to God, and 5 minutes later you're complaining about this guy and all these things that are bothering you. And it's like, what happened over there? It's because we took ourselves out of that element. We didn't realize how holy we were in that place. And therefore, once you left, you didn't realize that you left yourself over there. And you need to be able to gather yourself from that place and actually bring that holiness with you, bring that elevated experience with you. So many times we go through an experience and we leave ourselves there expecting that the experience will only be felt at that highest level if we're there. But if I go away, no, there's no chance. There's no way I'm going to be able to hold on to it. How many times have we had that within our own lives where we think that it's external circumstances that actually have causes for us? But the truth is, if we would actually gather it and bring it inside of us, you'll see the total change that actually happens over here. So the truth is, this scene over here, as they leave, they themselves felt that they couldn't retain this level anymore. It's not possible. But the Torah tells us something amazing. You know what happened once the Torah was given at Sinai? What happened after that? At the end, when the trumpets were blown, Sinai had no holiness left to it whatsoever. You could have gone up. And once the cloud leaves, they got the Torah. You could have gone up. Let's take selfies. Let's go to the top of the mountain. Like, this is where we are. Okay, here we got Torah from God. We heard the first 2 commandments over here. We're going like this, right? So, we could have actually taken picture that the mountain lost its holiness entirely, because God wanted to teach us this lesson that you're going to have revelation. Take that revelation with you. But they didn't feel that for themselves. They actually felt for themselves, no, this is the place of revelation. This is the place of holiness. If I'm not here, I'm going to actually lose it. God says, no, that's not true. It's true I'm going to create a tabernacle, a mishkan. It's true we're going to have a Beis HaMikdash. We're going to have Jerusalem. They're going to be holier places. But right now, when it comes to the giving of the Torah, there's one place that's the holiest place of all, and that's how you carry it inside of you. And the way you carry it inside of you, that's how you're going to be able to retain that Torah, because you are the embodiment of Torah itself. And that's the same reason why, when the Torah comes along, when the Torah is being walked out, you stand up for the Torah. What else do you stand up for? When a rabbi walks in. When someone who's the embodiment of Torah, someone who studies Torah walks in, you also stand up for them. Because that signifies that Torah is not just simply in a scroll. Torah actually goes into the person itself. And that's what they missed at that level of Har Sinai, that they felt, to some extent, I don't want to say fully, but to some extent, that they felt that it's the holiness is only going to be when I'm there, and it's not true. When it comes to levels of our experiential holiness, it sits inside of us. You can carry it and make it into an amazing experience. So that's just hinted to from the Marsha over here. I want to share that idea. It's a profound concept.
What Sean was here to hear this.
He what?
I said I wish Sean was here to
We have recorded.
Perfect.
Yeah. But at the same time, since you said that, there is something called Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, the holiness of Israel, that actually has the holiness that permeates through a person and makes it so much easier.
You can't edit it out of the tapes.
You ask for it.
Right? And that when a person's studying Torah in Israel, it's like, a person's trying to diet, and when they're going to smorgasbords every single day at weddings, it's very hard to diet. But when every day they're just sitting with a bunch of vegans and all they have is lettuce at the table, it's much easier for them to diet because everything's there. You can actually fulfill it. So when it comes to Torah, when a person's in Israel, that experience is even stronger rather than when you have other things that surround you. So that's just to Sean, you didn't hear that, okay?
Stop in the name of love.
I know.
Before you break my teeth. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Or
Yeah, please, go ahead.
now it's okay. So if there wasn't any experience that was closer than Har Sinai with more clarity and connection and everything, and they failed, what is the mechanism for people to implement today?
You're mortals.
Mashiach.
No. I mean, so we'll see that again, they failed, right? So we always ask the question, well, where would we? Would we have offered the golden calf the same way, right? So they slept the night of Shavuot, so we try to rectify, right? So these, I think they're just basic lessons. I don't think we're here to judge and say, oh, if they can't do it, we can't do it. I mean, obviously, that's a natural tendency. It's almost like an excuse that we have. But I still think that it just comes to a hakara, a recognition that no, this is not the same experience, and you can carry it with you. You can carry it with you. I don't have a better answer for you. Let's put it that way.
Stop asking good questions.
No. Meaning, I can't discount the question, but I think we shouldn't. I don't think we should give the excuse of like, you're right. I mean, they're clearly better. We have no chance. We're done.
Thank you.
I don't. Right, that's what I'm saying. I don't have a good answer, but I don't think we should just sell it off as it's like if they couldn't, we can't. It's a good question, but
What is Russian people take Jerusalem back?
I'm not even going to address that. I don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Not the Russians. Russian Jews.
So, two more points on this. So one, there's going to be the case of the complainers, okay? The misonanim. We're going to address that in a moment. But now I want to address the fact that Moshe says, what am I supposed to do over here? Moshe, why have you done evil to me? Why have I not found favor in your eyes that you placed the burden of this entire people upon me? Did I conceive this entire people? Did I give birth to it? They say that I have to carry them and nurse it like a suckling to the land of your forefathers. What am I going to be able to give them? I can't do anything. I can't carry this nation. So God says, Esfali Shivim Ish, gather for me 70 people from the elders. Asher Yadat, that Kihem Ziknei Am, they are basically the leaders and its officers. Take them to the tent of meeting and stand them there with you. Take them to the tent of meeting. And I want you to stand them next to you. Rashi says, what does it mean? I want them, don't just take them and say, okay, you guys are appointed. Put them equal with you. Put them on equal footing with you so that the Jewish people will see and they will offer them proper honor as well. And they'll be able to say, wow, how precious are these people that Moshe brought them in, and it's as if they are on equal footing with Moshe as well. Okay, so now, this point is key. The Medrash says like this. Again, what is Moshe doing? Moshe is supposed to gather 70 people. When he gathers these 70 people, he doesn't just say, okay, gentlemen, I'm the CEO. You guys will be managers, and this is how it's going to work. You're going to help me guide these people. Rather, we are all at the same level. We're all going to be the equivalent of CEOs to guide these people over here. So Rashi is explaining here why. You need the people to be able to recognize the greatness of who they are. You need the Jewish people, the rest of the Jews, to recognize that these 70 people are in such caliber, they're at equal footing with Moshe. If you want to be able to have that respect, you need them to have that. So the Medrash gives us an interesting concept. The Medrash says the following idea. Rabbi Abba said, in the level of piety, of humility, I don't like to walk in the marketplace. The reason why I don't want to walk in the marketplace, because if I have to walk in the marketplace and people are doing their work there, what's going to happen is they're going to notice me, they're going to have to stand up, they're going to have to honor me, they want to treat me with proper honor, and I'm going to interrupt them from their work. I don't want to be able to do that. So he was saying in a sense of humility, and I think that, I would guess that that's the right thing to do, You're a humble person. You don't need to get other people to stop what they're doing so they can stand up for you. So he goes out of his way to not walk through the marketplace, goes around to prevent this from happening. So he said this over to 2 other rabbis, and they said, you're making a mistake. What's the mistake that you're making? They said to him, you know what? You do need to walk before them. The reason why you need to walk before them is because you need to give them the opportunity so that they can actually respect you. Because if you give them the opportunity to respect you, what's going to happen is they're going to have greater respect for you, for Torah, and from that is going to be greater respect for God. Right? And there's a pasuk in the Torah that says, it's a beautiful pasuk, beautiful verse, because it's also on the buses in Israel. Right? What does it say on the buses in Israel? It says, in that place where they speak Hebrew. It says, Mipnei seva takum. Right? It says, before a seva, which is a verse that we say in the Torah, before an elder person, someone who's of old age, you stand up for them. So in the city buses in America or other places, it just says, please give your seat to someone who needs it, who's older. But in the city buses in that other place, it says it quoting a pasuk. It's quoting the verse itself. Mipnei seva takum. It's like so beautiful. You walk in, you're like, wow, there's like Torah verses on my city bus, right? So Mipnei seva takum means that you stand up. You stand up for someone for an elder, someone who's in need. If you continue on that pasuk, Mipnei seva takum, if you get up for an elder, v'adar t'pnei zaken, and give honor to someone who's zaken, is older, v'yareisa me'elahecha Hashem, you shall fear Hashem your God. You shall fear Hashem, I am your God, right? So the Medrash says that they responded to this Rabbi Abba and says, no. How do you read the verse? Mipnei seva takum, stand up for the elder. By doing that, you will, in turn, fear God. If you want to be able to develop a sense of fear for God, a sense of awe for God, and respect for God, then you'll do it to those that are older than you. And so that's what the Medrash says over here. So Moshe brings these people together. He wants everyone else to be able to see that respect, so they must be on equal footing. And the Medrash is teaching us over here is that sometimes we think, I don't need people to praise me. I don't need my children to do it. The answer is it's not true. You need your children to do it because you want them to do it not for you, but actually for them, so that they should be able to respect you. And in turn, that's going to give an extra respect for God. And unfortunately, today, we don't have it, depending on your ages of your kids. Sometimes it's very hard to be able to do. I think I mentioned this a few months ago, that for my 11th graders, my 12th graders, we were teaching them the laws of honoring your parents. And I taught them, look, the Torah tells you have to stand up when your parents walk in the room. And for some of the kids, it was really hard to do. And for some of the parents, they're like, this is the best thing in the world. I love it. And they were just like, this is so cool, do it again, walking in and out just to make sure that the kid keeps standing up, But it was like, so the parents like, I've never seen this before, this is amazing. So the kids actually developed a greater respect for their parents with that. And that's right, you tell them, right? You tell them, right? That the individual will develop a greater sense of respect when you see someone and you're standing up for them. You're showing that honor. We are recognizing that not everybody's on the same equal footing. And parents have to be able to teach us over to their kids that not everybody's on the same page. We all want to be friends to our kids to some extent, but no. I'm sure Russians do very well at this anyway, that they make their kids know that, I'm your parent, But it's to be able to show that there's a level of hierarchy, and that respect is not because I demand respect, but that respect is so that you'll understand what respect is and be able to respect God. A few weeks ago in Shul, a guy came by for Shabbos, and he said that he's the only one religious in his family, and his mother berates him for being religious. And he said, I have like 3 siblings, and my mother makes fun of me that I'm religious, but I'm the only one that talks to her. None of my siblings talk to her. And the only reason why I talk to her is because the Torah says you have to honor your parents. And that's the only reason why, otherwise I wouldn't talk to her either. That's what he said to me, right? So I wouldn't talk to her either. I'm like, wow, that's sad, right? He said, I wouldn't talk to her either, but she doesn't speak to them at all. And you're so upset at me being religious, but that's the only reason why I'm actually treating you this way. So the Medrash is teaching us over here, part of the reason why Moshe brought them together is so that people should be able to understand its levels of respect. And when you can respect someone higher than you, you're actually going to have a greater respect for God. And it's a very powerful concept that in today's world, parents and children are unfortunately not doing that. And we need to actually bring that back. Bring that back to people. I would even suggest, if you saw someone younger, if it doesn't work with your own kids, you can see someone younger, you say, you know what, you should really treat your father better. Speak to your mother better. You know what, you should stand up when your father walks in the room. I'm not saying we should all become policemen to other people's families, but there is an element, it's much easier to somebody else's family, obviously, but there is an element of being able to bring that back, because that will get the next generation to a level of understanding what honor is really all about, and that is in essence the honor of God himself. And then tonight we're just going to end with what I would say is the cherry on top.
Can I ask a question? So is it 70 people for each nation, or is it? Like
yes, that's what he said.
From different tribes, it's actually...
Right, different tribes, but it's...
But it was 70 nations plus Jews, or 70 nations...
70 other nations.
70 other nations. So it pretty much was like, let's say, 71 Jews, right?
Okay. Yeah, 70 nations, yeah. The other nations, correct.
So, okay, so 70 other nations.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so so the last thing I want to discuss is probably something that's very difficult for us. I know it's difficult for me. Prior to Moshe choosing these 70 elders, the verse says, Vayiyam kimisonim, and the people were, behold, they were complaining. Rabbas ne Hashem, and they were evil, it was evil in the ears of God. And Hashem heard it, and his anger became enraged, and a fire came and consumed them, destroyed people. People cried out to Moshe. Moshe prayed to God. The fire died down, and the place is called the Tav'era, burning, because the fire that burned against them. What happened over here? So the verse, again, let's just review this. The people complained. It was evil in the eyes of God, in the ears of God. God heard it, and he got angry, and he just wiped them out. He burnt them to smithereens. Right? What'd they do? What'd they complain about?
They wanted meat, like they used to in Egypt. Material things.
So, no. That's the next case. Right after that, it says the rabble came and they said, hey, we want meat. Right? We remember the fish, the garlic, everything that we had over there, but we have nothing to eat now. All we have is this mun, this spiritual food. What else could we have? So the first case was the people were complaining. God burnt them. Second case was, right after that, this rabble came and says, we have, you know what? We have desires. We have things we want. We're not getting things that we have, and we want to get those things. We want meat. We want other things. So what was the first case? What were they complaining about?
Something with idol worship. No?
So, just a few views on this.
In order to get burned, that's pretty
Hefty, right?
pretty hefty.
So, so Rashi quotes over here, they were looking for a pretense how to separate themselves from God. And that's what it was. They were looking for some sort of pretense to be able to complain against God. Right? The Ramban says over here, what were they saying? The Torah doesn't actually declare what their sin was. In all other places, you see the next case, it says they wanted meat, they wanted this. Here it says, and the people were complaining, and that really angered God. And because of that, that's it. So he says, they got further away from Sinai, which was near an inhabitable settlement, and they entered the great and dreadful wilderness, okay? They became upset. They said, what are we going to do? How are we going to live in this? How are we going to live in this desert over here? What are we going to eat? What are we going to drink? How are we going to deal with the suffering? So what were they complaining about? They were complaining about the future. Not complaining about what they had. They were complaining about, how are we going to do this? This is ridiculous. I don't know how I'm going to get past this. I'm just going to complain. So the Ramban's approach is, they said, what are we going to eat? What are we going to drink? How are we going to make it through this? It's going to be so hard for us. And so therefore says, they felt anxious and they were upset, and that is what angered God.
It's angers the God probably because they want to be slave again.
They don't want to be slaves again.
Yeah.
They didn't trust God. The first they trusted completely, no question asked, so God provided for them everything on the way, and then they stopped trusting completely, and that's basically they don't believe it could be provided. And when they start worrying themselves, they stop trusting.
Okay, so now, let's assume you're right. Okay, that it's a lack of trust. So the simple question is, on the basic reading, what is happening over there? They're complaining. When you complain, what happens when you complain?
Not lack of faith.
Is it a lack of faith? So, okay, so the simplest level we could say, when I complain, it's a lack of faith.
You reject the God.
So let's take an example. Let's give an example. Okay, you're complaining that the line of the market is too long. You're complaining that you're in traffic. So what do you have? Lack of belief in God?
No, it's inconvenient.
It's inconvenient. So what are you complaining about? You get home, and you tell somebody, your spouse, your kid, your friend, you tell them, oh, you're not going to believe what happened today. And then, you know, what? So what's the deal over there? Is there a lack of faith in God?
You're supposed to be in control instead of God.
So okay, so you're saying that is a lack of control, which in essence is a lack of faith in God. Lack of faith in God.
It's like idolatry when you get angry.
Okay, same idea. Idolatry, right? The idea is it's a lack of faith that a person
But they
actually
did
has.
not know where they're going, so they left Egypt, where they lived for a long time. They knew exactly what was happening there, and now when they left, they actually
They were entering into unknown.
Own.
They're entering into unknown. So that's the
their own.
Ramban. The Ramban says it's unknown.
So they
When you're worried about what's going to happen, worry is something that only happens in the future. Worry can't happen in the past, right? You can be bothered by what you did, but worry can only be a future experience. I'm worried what's going to happen. You can't worry about the past.
And they don't know how to live in the future. They lived back. They don't know how the new life is going to be. So they're kind of like not sure. They want to go back because that's what they get.
Okay, so let me ask you the question now. So I'm worried. I'm nervous. I don't know what's going to happen over here. God says, no problem. I'll just kill everybody.
Nobody's worried anymore.
Right? Nobody's worried. Huh?
Works every
Yeah.
time.
He almost did once, so
I just want to know over here again. This is such a heinous sin, right? The sin of the spies was really bad, right? The people complained. Okay, the spies that were died off right away. Everyone else, they're going to die out slowly. Here, this case over here, I can't believe this. What we're going to do over here? Boom, goodbye. Next. Anyone else have anything they want to say? It's like the Untouchables, right? Anything? Anybody have? Come on, to ask me a question, right? What's going on here? That should bother you, right? It bothers me, right? You have one complaint, and the complaint is undefined over here. It's worthy of immediate annihilation. Okay? So yes, I think we're all right. It's a lack of faith in God. But I think there's something even bigger over here. Man, every time we complain, we're this close. Right? We're this close. Meaning God says, I thought about it to myself, I was driving here, I said, why is complaining? I tried going onto my Google, it wasn't working. I'm like, God, okay Google, why is complaining so irritating? Right? When someone complains to you, in the beginning you can have compassion, afterwards you're just like, enough. Stop complaining. Why is complaining so irritating?
Because basically it doesn't bring any solution to that. It's just like
Why? Couldn't complaints bring solutions?
No.
Couldn't complain.
If you complain, you don't solve the problem.
You go to your boss and you say, you know what, I'm having trouble with the guy next to me. You know, he's doing something over there. He's whatever. He's throwing water over the cubicle and it's landing on my papers. You're complaining to your boss. He's going to do something about it. Yeah.
So you're blaming someone else instead of.
That is a problem if your boss cubicle next to you, the guy's pouring water onto your papers. And it is blaming somebody else. I agree, but I would say that that's that is his problem. So I'm complaining, but why is that? I'm going to get results, right? I'm going to get results. So
It's annoying and it's make all
It's
other
non-stop.
people weak.
it makes other people weak.
Yeah.
So I think meaning there's no that's a constructive complaint. I'm going to my boss, say, you know what, the guy next to me is dumping water in my cubicle. This is not working out. We got to figure something out here, right? That's constructive for what we call a purpose. When complaints go into such an extent where there's no value to it, it's just to feel negative and to experience your negative view on life, then you're not going to be able to be part of the Jewish people, to lead the Jewish people. Okay? Because if you, and the Jewish people, are the chosen people who are given God's Torah to say, I want you to be able to do this with your fullest ability to be the light into the nation, if you're going to complain, then that's not how you're going to be able to lead this world. You can't do that. So those complaints over there, this is my suggestion, could be the other suggestions over here. Those complaints over there, like you said, Rita, that there's no value to that complaint. You're not actually looking for a solution. You're looking to just be negative. And that's the distinction over here. Vayehi ha'am kimisonim. The nation were like complainers. It wasn't say that they were complaining. They were like complainers. Which means, when you're complaining, it's ra b'nei Hashem, it's ba'aznei Hashem, it's evil in the ears of God. Why? Because when you're like a complainer, you're not looking for solutions. You're looking to create negativity around you without actually looking to make a difference, to make a change, to find something good. And this is what I think is God saying over here. That has no place, because you cannot build from that. It just takes people down, and there is no hope from that. And what ends up happening is that everybody else around you can no longer see good. First, they get irritated, and they get bothered by you, and then what happens after that is they themselves become complainers. They also only see the negativity around them, and then it's a terrible pattern that can't be a people of growth. So I think that perhaps is what is being hinted over here, that it's much more. It's obviously when you have a problem, you need to go someone to get that out. But if your complaints are not going to be solution based, but rather it just bothers you, I think that's a piece of the Yetzer Hara. That's just the Yetzer, it's the evil inclination that's trying to take you down. And I think that's one thing that Hashem is telling us over here, that this is a piece that really is so dangerous for all of us, and depending on how you grew up is how you actually complain. And some people have less complaints in their lives, and other people, they can't stop complaining. Their life is just one complaint after another. And that is Ra Baznei Hashem. Hashem is not listening to this evil. Again, the concept of Ra in Hebrew literature, the word Ra, we translate as evil, Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, but the word Ra really means void. It means lacking. It's emptiness over there. There's a void of closeness that one has to God. So when we say Ra is basically an emptiness, like a black hole. There is no holiness, there's no light there. So when something is Ra, it's evil in the ears of God, and it means when a person is complaining, there is actually no closeness that a person can actually get to God. There's a pure distance or a cutting off of that of God. So the nature of that means if you have cut yourself off from God due to the complaints, then that's what's going to happen. You're just going to be burnt up. You have no existence. That's what I think is a powerful word over here. That it's a scary thought. Not even so much scary, but it's a beautiful lesson for us. Like when people say the joke, why should I complain? No one's going to listen anyway. The answer is complaining, and I'm speaking to myself. Complaining is in essence the separation I have from a spiritual sense of who I am, from a higher sense of self. Complaining is just something that just pulls a person away, and that's why it's considered. We're not going to wait later. We're not going to destroy you later. That's it. You have lost your connection to anything spiritual that exists within you, and therefore the person is actually cut off. So I think that's that's a powerful thought, and really gives you insight as to how and when we're going to complain. The next time, that's what we need to have, like a buddy system. The next time you see someone complain, go, you sure you want to complain? Are you sure you want to do that? Because I thought you wanted to get closer to God. Are you sure you want to do that? I'm going to try this on my kids. I'm sure it's going to go over really well, right? Right? But that, I think that is a piece, you know.
What I thought exactly. So we are kind of all responsible for each other. Those people, complainers, they have to be, because they're making separation. They're supposed to be like, shut up.
That's it. I'm saying it's sad, but that's you know.
It's sad, but that's what it is, because it makes
Everybody's
sense.
gonna.
Yeah, but the question is, why do we do it so much? Why do we have the classic Jewish mother? Why do we do it so much? Why is it done so much?
You talk too much.
Maybe it's a human.
It is human condition. It's human condition. It's human condition, but it's known as the Jewish mother, right?
Human mother?
Jewish mother. It's like, what's the Jewish mother? You know, it makes you feel guilty. They complain. No, it's okay. You know.
Yeah. Jewish mothers complain?
Oh yeah.
Of
course.
No, you haven't heard?
Jewish, Italian,
Never heard about that.
Jewish and Italian, right?
No, they haven't.
Ludo, yeah, Ludo.
In the other 70 nations. 69.
What? I'm sorry.
When Hashem's angry. So
What-
what is that?
what does that mean?
Why does Hashem get angry, and why is it not okay for us to get angry?
I love that question. It's a great question. It happens. It's a great question. So whenever we have a character trait of God being presented, it doesn't necessarily mean that God doesn't change, right? Obviously, doesn't change. So it's our own experience. Which a short answer I give. It's not the answer, but a short answer I give is that God becomes our mirror. So which means if you have acted a certain way, that will bring upon you the concept of what we would think is anger, but it's the way God creates all creation. So you're going to act a certain way, you're going to have the result of it. Let's say a person's going to go ahead and do some particular sin, God says, they're cut off, they're destroyed, whatever it is. Is it anger over there? It's the equivalent of anger, which means unleashing the power, which means that, again, that create the tremendous distance that you have no existence. So if you do X, Y will be the result. So does it mean that God is getting angry? Or does it mean that when you do this, you have initiated what in our mind would look like God is getting angry, but you have initiated this creation of distance and punishment because of that which you've done? Does that answer the question in a shorter way?
Wait, I have a question also. Why is that just, I heard like if you don't like something in a different person, right? So that means you have this feature.
Right.
So is that the same like in mirrors working, or is that?
Yeah, I mean with God. Yeah, I mean usually that when we find fault in other people, it usually means that we're holding on to that fault ourselves. To some
Why
extent.
can't we say that about ourselves? If I get angry at my husband,
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
you
just
never
hearing,
do.
It's really his, he's the reason we have to.
it's not totally not you. I would totally agree in this case, right? In this particular case, I would agree with you. So all right. So the answer is that we're as human beings, we're not God. And as human beings, we have our own things that we have to work on for ourselves. And so whenever we're getting angry, that's what the Talmud says. It's like avodah zarah. That's like idol worship when we're getting angry, because our anger is based on how we recognize God's control over things. And when we don't have that, right, whatever you want to throw, fair for you to throw, right? But therefore, that's our own working. If we were God, then it would just simply be a mirror. But when we're getting angry, it means that obviously buttons are being pushed within us, and a lot of times those buttons are buttons from our youth, of certain triggers that happen in our youth that we actually get upset. But we can't expect ourselves to be God and just say, no, this is not me. I am only getting angry on behalf of God. I will throw this raw egg in your face. Like that's our own anger. That's not God. Yeah.
So the cubicle complaining is justified and legitimate, but let's say traffic was bad, complaining is not.
Right, because there's for a reason for it, and you're not going to change anything by having that complaint.
Solution to that.
Right, so usually when we're having a hard day, and we have bad things that happen to us on that day, maybe it's the respect that we felt or we didn't get from other people, and the way certain things happen, let's say you're on the supermarket, in the line at the market, and the guy cuts you off. Like, unbelievable, And then you're on the road, and someone cuts you off, and you get so upset, like, why did who drives here? What is people doing, How many times do you cut somebody off, or accidentally cut somebody off, and they flip you the finger? Right?
3 times today.
Right? So how I'm sorry, I apologize. I only meant to do it twice, you know.
No, I was the one flipping.
Oh, you okay? So when that happens, like, what's that experience that the person's going through there? He totally has no control over his faculties, and he thinks that, you know, all these things that he's becoming a victim of all these, and he needs to show people that he knows how to stretch out his hand, right? So, like, what's the necessity for it? He's doing it because he doesn't see any control. But if he would stop and say, okay, there must be a reason for it, you know? There must be a reason why these things are happening over here. And, like, you have to deal with it. There are people's negligence, and we get upset at people's negligence. Like, someone told me that they got so upset because the driver, a cousin of mine was in an accident where a driver was coming this way and was tailgating while on the phone, and then swerved at the last minute and hit her. And she was so upset because it was pure negligence as to the way he did it. Like, you're right, it's pure negligence. I can't deny that, pure negligence. But the fact is, you were involved, and that was coming from God. So you can't say God was negligent over there. Obviously, if he wanted it to happen, he could have made it happen one way or another. So that's really our experience in these things. How are we dealing with the situations that happen in our lives? It's hard because we know when we get angry, and we know when it happens, and then we know when we complain. You know, in complaining, I don't know if I shared this with you. When I was, my daughter was 2 years old, so I came home one day, whatever. I think she was 2. Yeah, it must have been about 2.
Which?
Eliana.
Yeah,
Eliana, right? She's 2 years old. You know, she's just learning to talk, right? And I wasn't sleeping well during that time. I was having a very hard time sleeping. And, you know, she's playing on the bed, and she goes like this. She plops herself down and goes, "Oh, I'm so tired," right? So my wife looks at me like, where did she learn that one from? Right? I'm like, what? Like, okay, so you're just complaining about how tired you are all the time. And look what she's doing. She's just imitating you. A 2-year-old going, when does a 2-year-old always go, "I'm so tired," right? They don't feel that. They're just copying you. So I was like, oh, okay, you know. But like my second nature was when I'm exhausted, I just go, "I'm so tired." My wife says, you don't have to tell us if you're tired. If you're tired, take a nap. Why does anybody else need to know? But the nature of the way I grew up was different than the nature of the way she grew up. And the truth is, she's right. What's the point of my complaining? Who is going to listen? What am I gaining for it? The answer, I would say, is when a person complains, they want someone to hear them out. They want someone to be compassionate to them. That's really what they want. Most of the time when someone complains, what do? Are you done? Is it enough? Can we move on? What's going to change now that you complained, right? So we're not giving the compassion that they need, and therefore they continue doing it, and nobody wins. So the truth is, when we hear someone complaining, the trigger needs to be, okay, I got to put on that compassionate tone. But the problem is their voice is grating, and it's bothering us, and it's eating us up, and you're like, right? And it drains you, and then, you know, you can say, I don't know if you want to complain. The last time I heard the Jews complaining in the desert, I'm just letting you know, it wasn't good. It wasn't ideal. Okay, I'm just letting you know. You know, there were 2 nuns around over there. Okay, it's just a bad idea. Just stop, you know. So, but this is a struggle, I think, that everybody really goes through over there. Yeah, one of you had a question? Yeah.
I thought for a while that that's part of venting. You know, venting I thought it makes you feel better. So you know, long day, you know, you can come home and then you vent, and then that's supposed to maybe get it off your chest, as you know, as they say. But then you know, just recently I read in psychology that they discovered that venting is actually counterproductive.
Correct.
It makes the problem linger for a little bit longer
right.
than if you just forget it. You know, so it looks like Torah wisdom
Right.
was discovered in psychology
way before. So I remember many years ago. It was about 12 years ago, I think it was, or maybe even more. In LA, this professor who was a rabbi. Professor of psychology who was a rabbi, who was showing how psychology today is showing all these things that exist within the Torah. And he pointed out this idea is that when a person actually uses their anger, it actually exacerbates their anger and makes their threshold for anger shorter. Which means that if you get angry, the next time your fuse will be shorter and you'll get angry quicker. So we think that when we get rid of our anger, it's like, I'm more relaxed, okay, it's fine, at least I got rid of it. What you've done is you got rid of it. The next time will come even quicker and sometimes with greater force. And he showed it. I don't remember the whole thing. I was just like, it was profound that we think that by getting rid of the anger, it actually enables us to be much more calmer. But the truth is, it doesn't get that way. So, people say, okay, you get home, you're angry at something, so then, throw something. But if you look at the Balei Musar, the masters of self-improvement, they would have different approaches that weren't like, throw raw eggs or break china, right? What they would do is they would put on an anger coat. They would put on a coat that they had that would enable them that only when they wore that coat could they get angry. So if a person was angry, I think it was a Risol Salanter, he would go into his other room, put on his anger coat, and then he said, now I can get angry. But if he didn't have his coat with him, he'd go, no, I can't be angry now, only when I put on the coat. So what did that mean? It meant that you had to train yourself to actually not get angry, and the more you would get angry, the worse it would actually be in the long run, and it would just create a greater sense of rage, and many times people just feel like, no, I got rid of it, so it's fine. I'm clear to go. And you've just created it worse. So complaining, I think, and anger are falling under the same boat over here, that it's actually long-term use of it is unfortunately not healthy, and it becomes more worse on the human being.
So being on the other end of it, so in an example of a child complaining, for example, we took a parenting class that taught us to validate whatever the child is feeling, right? So you actually go along with the complaint, or you validate, meaning that there's probably going to be more complaints coming next time because you're giving positive reinforcement. What are you supposed to do on the other end of it?
When you're the child or when you're the parent or whatever, you're the receiver. You're the receiver of the. You're listening to someone's complaints, right? So I think there's an element of validation, which the Torah gives us the concept of Ima Nochi B'tzara, I'm with you in your pain. The validation is not just simply, because a lot of times we do this, we validate verbally with no non-verbal cues. Like, I understand it bothers you. I understand it bothers you. Like, I'll show you what else bothers me, the way you're talking to me now, right? Right? So what we need to be able to do is be compassionate in the way that it bothers you the same way it bothers them. That is the highest level we're supposed to get to. So like, my teacher, she never does this. And you go, you know what? That really bothers me. It's so unfair. How does a teacher do that? That really, I'm so bothered for you that can actually happen that way. I'm not saying that that's the ideal scenario, but you've validated their feelings that they're not alone in that. If you just say like, I'm sure the teacher had a right to do what she did, then you weren't there in their feelings of pain. The other option is to be able to just respond in that way. Is like, wow, I get it that you're so angry. It makes a lot of sense that you're angry. And what you're doing is you're not validating why they're angry, but you're validating that they're angry. So whether it's a child or a spouse or whomever, you're not saying like, yeah, your teacher's so wrong for what they did, but rather you're just saying like, wow, I totally feel that. It makes a lot of sense that you're angry. That when your teacher does that, it makes a lot of sense that you're angry for that.
But it doesn't encourage more of the same?
No, because you've just validated it. Because then once you validate it, then as time goes through that day, you can say, have you thought of another idea? Maybe you thought of the fact that this and this happened.
So I think if it's you can change something about it, or you can just so you basically can talk about the change, or if you cannot change and it's supposed to be this way, so just don't even talk about that.
Okay, but the question is, your kid is coming to you, or somebody's coming to you and they're complaining. So what do? Do you say to them? You can say rationally to them, well, is there anything we can do about this issue that you have?
Exactly. Is there anything we can do? It's basically you can't do anything about it.
So can I ask you a question? When someone's complaining, are they complaining from a rational standpoint or a irrational standpoint?
Yeah, you can figure it out.
Good. So if it's a rational standpoint, like, excuse me, boss, the guy in the cubicle next to me is pouring water on my papers, that's rational. You go, okay, let's put a stop to that. That's rational. Right? But if it's like, every time he moves his chair, it makes this noise, it really gets on my nerves, so then what are you as a boss going to say? I think you're right. We should probably throw him out, right? Like, okay, that's not an option. So what would you do is you acknowledge, like, oh, I get it. That it really, I get it. That's really annoying when that chair moves, that it bothers you, right? So what you've done is you validated the issue. You're not going to resolve the issue, but you validated to enable them to realize they're actually being heard, and then you can give them another thought as to how they can perhaps respond. maybe we can get WD-40 and spray it on their chair, right? Or maybe in your ears. You know, exactly, right?
Nice.
Right? You know,
So Russian high five.
So that's the thought. So.
It's not a Russian thing to do to empathize with your children. Just don't be quiet and move on.
Right, you're saying
It's
right.
not part of the culture.
It's not part right. It's not part of the culture because they need to have that ability for respect because there's a distance. Like, meaning, I as a parent don't need to explain to you something, and you need to grow up and move past it. That's in many cultures. Like we're not gonna even deal with your complaints. We'll just move on. And so the question is, does it work? I don't know.
I'm Americanized, so I've
You
done
never
it.
did that to me.
No, but that's how I've been brought up. I don't think anybody actively empathizes. Like,
I think it's not Russians. I don't think it's Americans. It's a struggle because in order to actively empathize, in order to actively do that, you have to really feel what the person's going through, and that's that you're really concerned and bothered with that they had to go through such a difficult time. That takes a tremendous amount of effort.
Jewish mother always say,
Call me anti-Semite.
So 2 questions.
Japan is the best method. Make fun of it.
So it's basically one of the best solutions to indication of compassion, true compassion to the complainer.
Right?
So that's the summary. So, but the second question. So, what was happening? Where is the syndrome of the Jewish mom comes from?
That's a great question. Anybody have an idea where the syndrome of the Jewish mom comes from?
Say it again? What is that?
How did the Jewish mothers get a reputation of being complainers?
did Eve complain of anything? I don't know.
I probably would say it's from Sarah.
No, it's a good question, right?
Anti-Semite.
And right? Where does it come from? Where does it come from?
To make too much job, too much things.
Prayer
No,
maybe?
do it.
It's like a social construct over the years.
For men, it's global.
Is it coming from that time when they complain? Is it?
So again, this is a struggle. I believe the struggle is really coming from Adam and Eve. And the positive side of this complaining struggle is that a person complains when they're not reaching their potential, when they're not actually feeling they're at a place that they're reaching their potential. They'll find wrong and things like that because they themselves can go to a higher level. So when a person reaches higher potential, they won't feel. But when a person is not feeling that they themselves are reaching where they could actually be, higher spiritual, physical, material, whatever it is, they see a sense of wrongdoing. So maybe that's where the Jewish mother comes from, is that it's like, that is, I think maybe, I'm not sure, that's a struggle. I don't know if all other cultures complain. There's obviously a little bit of complaints, but some people, they don't shoot for the stars. They're not like yearning for the greatest jobs, the greatest experiences, and their minds aren't set to be at such a high level. So maybe that's where it comes from. But they don't feel like they're losing out. Whereas the Jew can feel like they can always get to higher levels, and maybe that's why. Maybe it's a suggestion. I don't know. Javi had a question.
Yeah. When
Thank
you
you.
said about the validating of social complaint, at what point, if there is another side to show from the teacher or whatever, do you bring it up?
Well, first thing to tell you is that you don't actually take sides with your child, because in order for them to understand authority and for them to respect their teachers, you always have to be on the side of the teacher. So that there's no two different senses of authority. Well, we don't do that. Your teacher's wrong. Like, wait a minute, right? How am I going to respect my teacher now? Right? So that's one thing that we try to do. The second thing is that once you've validated their pain and their feeling, then you can and they felt it. They felt that connection. Oh, my mother and my father care about me. They're bothered with it. Then you can say, you know what? Let's look at this in another light. Maybe your teacher was suggesting this or that. Maybe there's another idea that maybe a different approach that perhaps is.
In the same conversation?
Yeah, after the storm has calmed down. Right? Because when it's in state.
Really wrong.
Okay, so then you validate the child's feelings. You find out what they've actually done. You could potentially call the teacher, right? Number one, to find out what their side of the story is, if there is. Like, we'll give you an example. One of my kids came home and they said, we went on a trip and the teacher said, okay, everybody in the car, you don't have to buckle if you don't want to. right? It was like an event. You don't have to buckle if you don't want to. Like, that's not good. So we've seen other families that don't buckle, but in our family we buckle. You know? So what does it mean? Is my child wrong? No, what we'd say is, you know, it's interesting that your teacher said that, and in our family we buckle. And that's what we do in our family, we buckle. Now I could go and call the teacher and say, you know, in the future if you ever take the kids, would you mind, don't give them the option of buckling. If parents don't do it, fine, but we have a legal system and it's safe, so we shouldn't do it. That's how I would address the scenario without disregarding what the teacher said. Okay, I understand the teacher said this, but in our family we happen to do it this way because we want to make sure that we're safe. I can understand that the teacher has his view or her view, and this is what we do.
I gave my kids a graphic description of what happens, you know, when you don't buckle in the back seat.
That's
and then
nice.
You fly over, you know, the people in front of you. You break their head, you break your head, and then you fly out the front window, and then you land in front of the car on the other car.
You can show them a video. They have videos of it.
They're buckling, as you know.
They have videos of it though. They actually show slow motion videos of what happens to these people. It's great.
And texting.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when kids are coming home and saying, "Oh, this teacher did this, and we have only one day to prepare." No, doesn't say we. Say, "I have only one day to prepare. I cannot do it." You have another 30 or 40 or 50 kids in 2 classes. They have exactly the same problem. It's not only you. It's everybody else.
Look, all I can tell you is that, like, you know, I'm definitely